Defeat of the Spanish fleet in the Faro off Messina, by Alfred H. Miles. B.Y. John Campbell. Early in the year 1718, the activity of the naval preparations in England, rendered necessary by the disturbed condition of Europe, excited considerable anxiety and comment. M. de Monteleone, the Spanish minister here, a man of foresight and intrigue, taking alarm in a memorial dated March 18, 1718, represented that so powerful an armament in time of peace could not but cause umbrage to the king his master, and alter the good intelligence that reigned between the two crowns. To which King George I replied that it was not his intention to conceal the object of the armament, and that he designed soon to send Admiral Byng with a powerful squadron into the Mediterranean, in order to maintain the neutrality of Italy against those who should seek to disturb it. The reasons assigned for acting with so much vigor were the preparations made in Spain for attacking the island of Sicily and the hardships suffered by British merchants. In the month of March 1718, Sir George Byng was appointed admiral and commander-in-chief of the squadron intended for the Mediterranean, and in the May following he received his instructions as follows: that he should, upon his arrival in the Mediterranean, acquaint the King of Spain, and likewise the Viceroy of Naples and Governor of Milan. He was sent into that seat, order to promote all measures that might best contribute to the composing the differences arisen between the two crowns, and for preventing any further violation of the neutrality of Italy, which he was to see preserved. That he was to make instances to both parties to forbear all acts of hostility, in order to the setting on foot and concluding the proper negotiations of peace. But in case the Spaniards should still persist to attack the emperor's territory in Italy, or to land in any part of Italy for that purpose, or should endeavor to make themselves masters of the island of Sicily, which must be with a design to invade the kingdom of Naples, he was then, with all his power, to hinder and obstruct the same. But if they were already landed, he was to endeavor amicably to dissuade them from persevering in such an attempt, and to offer them his assistance to withdraw their troops and put an end to all farther acts of hostility. But if his friendly endeavors should prove ineffectual, he was then to defend the territories attacked, by keeping company with, or intercepting their ships, convoys, or, if necessary, by opposing them openly. The admiral sailed from Spithead on June 15, 1718, with 20 ships of the line of battle, 2 fireships, 2 bomb vessels, a hospital ship, and a store ship. Arriving on the 30th off Cape St. Vincent, he dispatched the Superbee to Cadiz, with a letter to Colonel Stanhope, the king's envoy at Madrid, desiring him to inform the King of Spain of his arrival in those parts on his way to the Mediterranean, and to lay before him the instructions he had received. The envoy showed the letter to Cardinal Alberoni, who, upon reading it, told him with some warmth that his master would run all hazards, rather than recall his troops or consent to any suspension of arms, adding that the Spaniards were not to be frightened, and that he was so well convinced of their fleets doing their duty, that if the admiral should think fit to attack them, he should be in no pain for the success. Mr. Stanhope, having in his hand a list of the British squadron, desired his eminence to peruse it, and to compare its strength with that of their own squadron. This the cardinal took and threw on the ground with much passion. All that the cardinal could be brought to promise was to lay the admiral's letter before the king, and to let the envoy know his resolution upon it in 2 days, but it was 9 before he could obtain and send it away. The answer was written under the admiral's letter in these words: His Catholic Majesty has done me the honor to tell me that the Chevalier Byng may execute the orders which he has from the king his master. The admiral, pursuing his voyage with unfavorable winds, reached the Bay of Naples on August the 1st, and on the 9th anchored in view of the Faro of Messina. The Spanish army, having taken the city of Messina, were now encamped before the citadel which the troops under Sir George Byng's convoy were intended to relieve. From these strained conditions, hostilities seemed imminent, and the desire of the English was that the Spaniards should take the responsibility and the blame of striking the first blow. Under these circumstances, Sir George Byng sent Captain Saunders with a letter to the Marquis de Lede, in which he acquainted him with the instructions under which he was acting, and proposed to him to come to a cessation of arms in Sicily for 2 months, in order to give time for the several courts to conclude on such resolutions as might restore a lasting peace, but added that, if he was not so happy as to succeed in this offer of service, nor to be instrumental in bringing about so desirable a work, he then hoped to merit his Excellency's esteem in the execution of the other part of his orders, which were, to use all his force to prevent farther attempts to disturb the dominions his master stood engaged to defend. The next morning the captain returned with the general's answer, that as he had no powers to treat, he could not of consequence agree to any suspension of arms, but should follow his orders, which directed him to seize on Sicily for his master the King of Spain. Upon receiving this answer, Admiral Byng immediately weighed, with the intention of coming with his squadron before Messina, in order to encourage and support the garrison and the citadel. In executing this maneuver, he sighted 2 Spanish scouts in the Faro, whereupon he altered his design and stood through the Faro with all the sail he could, following the scouts, imagining they would lead him to the fleet, which they did. About noon he came in view of their whole Spanish fleet, lying by and drawn into a line of battle, consisting of 27 sail of men of war small and great, besides 2 fireships, 4 bomb vessels, 7 galleys, and several ships laden with stores and provisions, commanded by the Admiral Don Antonio de Castaneta and 4 rear admirals, who, sighting the English squadron, stood away large but in good order of battle. The admiral followed them all the rest of that day and the succeeding night, and the next morning early, the English having approached near to them, the Marquis de Mari, rear admiral, with 6 Spanish men of war and all the galleys, fireships, bomb vessels, and storeships, separated from the main fleet and stood in for the Sicilian shore. Upon which Admiral Byng detached Captain Walton in the Canterbury with 5 other ships to follow them. The admiral pursuing the main body of the Spanish fleet, the Orford, Captain Falkingham, and the Grafton, Captain Haddock, came up first with them, about 10 o'clock, the Spaniards firing their stern-chase guns. The Spaniards repeating their fire, the Orford attacked the Santa Rosa of 64 guns and took her. The St. Carlos of 60 guns struck next without much opposition to the Kent, Captain Matthews. The Grafton attacked warmly the Prince of Asturias of 70 guns, formerly called the Cumberland, in which was Rear Admiral Chakin. But the Breda and Captain coming up, Captain Haddock left that ship, much shattered, for them to take, and stretched ahead after another ship of 60 guns, which had kept firing on his starboard bow during his engagement with the Prince of Asturias. About 1 o'clock the Kent, and soon after the Superbee, Captain Master, came up with and engaged the Spanish admiral of 74 guns, who, with 2 ships more, fired on them and made a running fight till about 3, and then the Kent, bearing down under his stern, gave him her broadside and fell to leeward afterwards. The Superbee, putting forward to lay the admiral aboard, fell on his weather quarter, upon which, the Spanish admiral shifting his helm, the Superbee ranged under his lee quarter, on which he struck to her. At the same time the Barfleur, which carried the English admiral, being astern of the Spanish admiral, within shot, and inclining on his weather quarter, Rear Admiral Guevara and another 60-gun ship, which were to windward, bore down upon him, and gave him their broadsides and then clapped upon a wind, standing in for land. The admiral immediately tacked and stood after them until it was almost night, but there being little wind, and the enemy hauling away out of his reach, he left pursuing them and rejoined the fleet 2 hours after night. The Essex took the Juno of 36 guns, the Montague and Rupert took the Volante of 44 guns, and Rear Admiral de Laval, in the Dorsetshire, took the Isabella of 60 guns. The action happened off Cape Passero, at about 6 leagues distance from the shore. The English received but little damage. The ship that suffered most was the Grafton, for, being a good sailor, her captain engaged several ships in succession, always pursuing the headmost and leaving the ships he had disabled or damaged to be taken by those that followed him. The admiral lay by for some days at sea to refit the rigging of his ships and to repair the damages which the prizes had sustained, and on the 18th received a letter from Captain Walton, who had been sent in pursuit of the Spanish ships which had made for the Sicilian shore under the Marquis de Mari. The letter is singular enough to deserve notice. It ran thus: Sir, we have taken and destroyed all the Spanish ships and vessels which were upon the coast, the number as per margin. The ships that Captain Walton thrust into his margin would have furnished matter for some pages in a French relation of the engagement. For, from the account they referred to, it appeared that he had taken 4 Spanish men of war, one of 60 guns, commanded by Rear Admiral Mari, one of 54, one of 40, and one of 24 guns with a bomb vessel and a ship laden with arms, and burnt 4 men of war, one of 54 guns, 2 of 40, and one of 30 guns with a fire ship and a bomb vessel.